Hey guys, thanks for getting me to hit my first ever channel milestone, 100 subscribers. To celebrate, I have a video on visual novels planned. Damn. When considering all of the video games that exist and just the sheer amount of gameplay variety that exists with all the video games ever made, like the high-on-crack action of Ultra Kill, the strategic battle of Fire Emblem, or the toughest nails combat in Souls-like games, I have always seen visual novels like this. Yo, this gameplay fire! I almost completely wrote off visual novels because of a mix of my own ignorance of what I thought the genre is capable of, but with the two special series that I'll be delving into in this video, it helped me break the ice and enjoy what visual novels can be in their own right. With books, pretty much the only thing that distinguishes a good book from a bad book is the style and quality of the writing used in it, but with video games, there are so many aspects that go into making a good video game. Music, gameplay, story, characters, art design, graphical fidelity, these are some of the aspects that a video game can excel at to make for an enjoyable experience. So when translating something like a book which rides on the back of how good the writing is to a video game which has so many more avenues of artistic expression, it can be a challenge to make the experience engaging. In this video, I will be delving into some surface level spoilers, like who the characters are in each of these games, but I will avoid talking about specific details because these games are, just a little long. But to demonstrate what I'm talking about here, let's delve into the first series that introduced me to visual novels, Ace Attorney.
Objection!
Nuh-uh. Fuck you mean, nuh-uh?
In real life, there are not many things I can think of as more boring as the legal system. And on top of that, I cannot think of anything more insane than being an attorney and having to back up some of these insane people. This guy wanted to swim with killer whales, so he snuck into the SeaWorld tank at night. And when he got killed by the killer whales, his family sued SeaWorld for not stating that killer whales can kill people and marketing them as harmless with plushies in their gift shop. This lady paid to go to Universal's haunted house and sued them when it was too scary and caused her emotional distress. And she won the case, by the way. This man represented himself in a lawsuit against a dry cleaner, suing them for $54 million for losing his favorite pair of pants and not standing by their satisfaction guaranteed policy. This man petitioned a court to change his legal age from 69 to 49 because it would allow him to have better chances on his Tinder dating profile. Each of these cases are bananas for the rather mundane court of law. And the Ace Attorney franchise, I feel, keeps his energy the whole way through, with the characters involved in each case ranging from generally normal to undiagnosed insane people. The setup for these cases are also completely wild, and the twists and turns that they pack into these games make for some of the most enjoyable moments in gaming for me in recent memory. The games in the Ace Attorney series that I'll be talking about here are the games in the Ace Attorney trilogy on Steam, since those are the games that I have played the most recently. In the Ace Attorney trilogy, you play as defense attorney Phoenix Wright, the desk-slamming, objection-raising, sarcastic Giga Chad himself. In the trilogy, you get to experience Phoenix Wright becoming a professional defense attorney through the cases that you help him solve. And it works so well because it feels like you are becoming an Ace Attorney with each case, peeling back the mystery in each one to find out the truth. In an effort to make the gameplay more enjoyable in Ace Attorney, the role of an attorney in these games is extended beyond what it is in real life. You not only have to prove your client innocent in each case you take on, but you also have to investigate crime scenes and gather testimony as a detective, and even find out who the true culprit is in each case. This is entirely unrealistic, but it works in making the gameplay more engaging as you feel like a one-man army gathering all the clues and piecing them together yourself to uncover the truth. The structure of a majority of the cases go like this. Watch an opening cutscene giving you a small snippet of the event of the crime taking place. Investigate the basic details of the case looking around the crime scene. Go to court and add suspicion that your client committed the crime. The court adjourns for the day to get further information on the case. You investigate further and get all the clues you need to solve the case, and then you go to court again for the final showdown to find the truth behind what happened. While this doesn't sound particularly engaging on paper, in practice it keeps you engaged through the whole way because of the incredibly well-written characters in all areas of the courtroom. In court, you primarily have to break through testimonies with the evidence you've collected to nullify the current testimony. There are more added gameplay elements in the later entries in the trilogy, but the base formula stays about the same. The greatest strength that Ace Attorney has is by far the courtroom segments, when everything starts to click in your mind and you go on a roll presenting the correct evidence and the music powers you up more than any drug on this earth could. And the world of Ace Attorney takes place in an alternate reality version of Los Angeles, as described by Jeanette Sue. The Los Angeles that Ace Attorney takes place in is an alternate universe where anti-Japanese sentiments and anti-immigrant laws were not enacted, and Japanese culture was allowed to flourish and blend into the local culture in the same manner as other immigrant cultures. This setup for the world of Ace Attorney is a very clever way around the localization issues that translating this game to English presented the Capcom team, like Curane Village. And when you are dropped into the Ace Attorney world, the world can seem quite harsh with all the ruthless prosecutors and witnesses that are clearly hiding information from you at all times. But by the end of the trilogy, you really get the hang of handling yourself in the courtroom and will be bawling your eyes out at the incredible cast that these games bolster. The main gripe I have with the games is the text noise, because it starts off alright at first, but it is one of the only sound effects you will be hearing for over 60 hours because there is no voice acting, and it gets very grating on my ears very fast. Halfway through the trilogy, I was like this. There is also no feature allowing you to see any sort of dialogue history in case you missed what someone was saying. There are some moments in the courtroom where you can also get soft-locked into not being able to complete a case. This happened to me on case 2-3, and I was forced to watch the end of the case on YouTube and install mods to unlock the next case. The trilogy is structured with the first game acting as a setup for the style of game and the characters that are essential to the story. The second game acts as a rising of the stakes and continuing of the plot elements of the first. And the third game is the balls to the wall finale that will have you out loud cheering/crying for the twists it has. This final game, Trials and Tribulations, is my favorite of the trilogy, but each game does their part very well and gives you a very memorable experience. Overall, I think the best part of this game is definitely the insane case setups and solving process of them. And I also really like the endearing characters who I love for their plot development and character writing. What was I saying again? The Ace Attorney trilogy, while having a very beefy time investment in order to beat the whole thing, has one of the best mysteries I have seen in gaming and is definitely worth your time. Now with my preferred court-style visual novel trilogy out of the way, let's move to the very distinct other courtroom visual novel trilogy. Now if Ace Attorney is the gaming equivalent of the straight-A student with all the accolades and praise, Danganronpa is their edgy and quiet little brother that every time you speak to them, you're a little more unnerved than you were before. If the reason that I continued to play the Ace Attorney games was to see more of my favorite characters and the insane cases that they were involved in, then I continued Danganronpa to see how bad of a car wreck this ride would be. Danganronpa was mainly popular with those in Tumblr communities, and because of that, it has gained quite a distinct reputation on the internet for having one of the most cringe-inducing fan bases of all time. But I will fully admit that its blend of Ace Attorney and Battle Royale does make for a very unique set of games that at the very least makes me curious on where this story is going to go. Unlike the Ace Attorney section of this video, I'm going to be a bit slower in this portion because I feel like there are more distinctions in the gameplay and characters in Danganronpa from game to game compared to the Ace Attorney trilogy. Oh, Danganronpa 1, I really did not enjoy you. The setup that Danganronpa 1 gives will be the setup that the rest of the trilogy generally abides to. That being that there's a teddy bear acting as a principal to a group of students that are being held against their will to a school, where in order to escape they must kill each other and avoid being identified as that killer. If this happens, then the students who falsely guessed the killer all got executed, but if the killer is guessed correctly, then only the killer is executed. There are way more psychological elements that Danganronpa establishes with these stakes compared to what is present in Ace Attorney, which gives the story a unique identity. All of the characters in this game and the other games have a forced harmony with one another until there's a murder, in which case you as the main character must gather clues and present those to your classmates in a flashy courtroom segments. The gameplay in the courtroom segments in the Danganronpa trilogy differs wildly from the more composed courtroom of Ace Attorney, and I know calling Ace Attorney's courtrooms more composed in comparison is really saying something. Courtroom segments in Danganronpa have way more interactivity in a good and bad way, with more minigames, and just the act of refuting testimony is sort of a skill test, timing, and logic puzzle. In Danganronpa 1, these elements are relatively harmless and add to the enjoyment of the courtroom segments. My favorite part of Danganronpa is seeing the insane setup for each one of the murders and what bizarre pieces are involved to make it appear as it does. Then in court, slowly figuring out who the true killer is among your classmates. As for the characters in Danganronpa 1, I found them to be mostly generic, but notable exceptions were Kyoko, Byakuya, Celeste, and Monokuma. Getting free time segments to spend time with these characters that I liked was welcome, as it helped raise the stakes of each case to hope that they weren't involved in any of the murders. The game's pacing, I think, is actually atrocious, however, with such drawn-out dialogue at times and conversations that I felt could have been cut out significantly. I know that it's a visual novel game, but whoo boy, does this game love to yap at me constantly. With all of these complaints, I feel like the general gameplay style set up in this game is engaging at the very least and greatly improves the slower non-courtroom segments. I also felt that the ending left me with enough questions to want to continue on to the second game, but was satisfying enough in its own right. Now this is what I'm talking about.
That is delicious. Finally, some good fucking food.
As far as the story and characters of the Danganronpa games, Danganronpa 2 is so much of an improvement compared to the first game. The characters present in Danganronpa 2 immediately felt more interesting to me than the ones in Danganronpa 1. The game also had me wanting to find out more about the characters, while at the same time figure out the mysteries of the game after the questions raised finishing Danganronpa 1. However, I honestly think that Danganronpa 2 made some sort of blood pact to improve its characters and story, because I think that the gameplay took a huge hit with the courtroom segments in this game being the absolute worst out of the entire trilogy, especially with Logic Dive and this game's version of Hangman's Gambit. Don't get me wrong, uncovering the truth in the courtroom is so much better than in the first game, but the actual minigames that they have you play are so much more painful than in the first. Certain moments in this game actually tugged on the heartstrings quite a lot, and if you played this game then you can probably guess which parts I'm talking about. The reveals and twists and turns in the story actually kept me really intrigued, especially with characters like Nagito being a wild card and figuring out what is happening to the outside world and how this game relates to the first one. The pacing of this game also just feels so much better despite being longer than the first game. Dialogue is handled in a much better way and conversations are kept more brief. Honestly, there is not too much more I can say about this game except that I loved every single one of the characters, and despite the gameplay in the courtroom segment significantly lacking for me this time around, the other aspects of the game make up for it in a big, big way. Please, more of this. After finishing Danganronpa 2, I was fiending to get to the final game in the trilogy, which I had heard has much better courtroom minigame segments compared to the second game, and hearing that, I was totally down for the strong story of the second game with better courtroom minigames. That would just be the best. However, after actually playing V3, I have to say that I was pretty let down by the whole experience. The whole courtroom gameplay was improved quite a bit compared to the past games, replacing the annoying minigames with really good ones at best to bland ones at worst. The presentation of the whole game is also much more sleek and nice to play compared to the past two games, and feels like an evolution of the formula after playing the previous two games, rather than an entry with no innovation at all. Alright, now for my gripes. First of all, the characters just straight up piss me the fuck off. You can clearly tell the developers of this game wanted there to be way more extreme personalities in this game compared to the past games. And while that can make for more distinct characters, in this game all of the characters just feel like crackheads or insane people rather than engaging characters, making a vast majority of characters of the cast very unlikable to me. Whenever the characters interacted with one another, I was taken out of the experience every time just wondering who the hell these people are and what is wrong with them.
If you wanna go, then you go to hill and go down.
Why you get fired,
yes,
man?
why? Are you crazy?
You're fucking
Because
paranoid,
you are fucking.
You fucking, you bloody.
You bloody.
Fuck you, bloody. Bastard, bitch.
You
fuck
bastard,
you. Bloody, fuck you, bloody.
And when I was interacting with them, I was like this.
You shut the fuck
But
up!
also,
You shut the fuck
let it
up!
get you a little bit.
You shut the fuck up!
And for V3, I just felt like the setting and setup of the game didn't do enough for me to make it feel fresh or very interesting at all compared to the second game, or even the first game. So I found the broad story for the majority of the game to be very bland. The pacing is between 1 and 2's pacing, as it is not as refined as 2 because the game still feels like it drags at parts, but it is not as slow as 1 was. However, those are big criticisms for a game that is a visual novel, which is supposed to be built on good writing first in mind. But what if I were to tell you that there are two major aspects that made this game a lot better for me? Firstly, there is one part of the game where you can actually buy a Love Hotel key to have an NSFW scene with one of the characters you might actually like. Secondly, the ending to this game is actually pretty batshit insane and quite bold compared to how generic the rest of the game was for me. I won't spoil it for obvious reasons, but it was more poignant than I thought, and very unique. It reminded me a lot of the fourth wall breaking nature of Doki Doki Literature Club. I like the ending for its boldness, and it is something that will sit with me for a while, which is more than I can say for other parts of this game, and the entire first game. Ace Attorney and Danganronpa as a trilogy of games gave me a lot of enjoyment as courtroom dramas, with way more flair and spice than most court cases in real life, and whatever courtroom dramas are on TV. Ace Attorney delivered on its promise of having some of the most interesting mysteries in gaming, with some of the best writing that I have seen in a video game. Danganronpa, on the other hand, gave the courtroom way more drama, accusing these eccentric characters of murder, and the battle royale elements present within it made it fun to see who would live and who would die. Both of these trilogies have given me a way deeper appreciation of visual novels as a game genre, and while I can't say that I'll play a ton more visual novels in the future, they at the very least have way more appeal to me than before. I can wholeheartedly recommend buying the Ace Attorney trilogy on Steam, as it is one of the best deals I have seen in gaming, and I have been made a permanent Ace Attorney fan. I am now playing the Apollo Justice trilogy, and after it will play the Investigation duology and the Chronicles trilogy. As for the Danganronpa main trilogy of games, I think they're good with a lot of ups and downs, but if you want a more twisted version of Ace Attorney, I can recommend playing it. Thank you everyone for watching this video. It took me so many hours to beat these 6 games, so hopefully it results in a video that you all enjoyed. Thank you so much on the support of my last video. It was so nice to see so many of you enjoyed it, and I will make sure to keep working hard on my end to produce content that you all enjoy. Thanks again guys for watching, and I hope you have a great one. Peace.